Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and my mission is to use this space to bring content to you to help you understand your struggle with food and break free from binge eating. And today's topic is what to do after a binge, and I've got 5 things for you. The most important ones is number 1 and number 5. So it's kind of like a sandwich with 1 and 5 being the bread, and you might play around with the fillings a little bit. You might do all of them, you might just do a couple of them. But personally for me, the first one and the last one that I'm going to share are the ones that helped me the most. So number 1, and this is not going to be very popular, is to accept. If you've just binged, and I imagine probably some of you watching this have deliberately chosen this video because you have just binged. If you have just binged, there is nothing you can do about it. It is completely beyond your control. I mean, I'm sitting here now and it's December and I'm looking outside and it's winter and the trees are bare, and do I wish it was summer? Yeah, I think I'd prefer it to be summer, but I accept that it's winter and I'm not distressed about it. I'm not arguing with the fact that it should be summer. I'm not complaining about it. Maybe sometimes I do, but for the majority of the time, I accept it because it's outside of my control. Now, it will feel harder to accept something like binge eating because it felt like it was in your control. But the point is if you've already done it, if it's already happened, to start kind of arguing with the fact that, or the belief that it shouldn't have happened, means that you are just going to keep arguing with reality. And what that means is that if you're arguing with reality, you are losing so much energy. You are feeling so bad about something, and there's no way to make yourself feel better because you can't change it. And I think acceptance gets a really bad rap because a lot of the time acceptance is seen as like a passive act. But this is not a passive act I'm asking of you. I'm asking you to actually choose acceptance. And by this, I think one of the other things that get people a bit tied up with acceptance is they think of acceptance as a feeling. And they're like, well, I can't feel okay about this. But in this example that I'm giving you with this tip, I'm suggesting that for this, acceptance is just a cognitive exercise. You might feel resistance in how you feel, but if you can mentally acknowledge there is nothing I can do about this now. So to keep pushing and like arguing against what's already happened is just going to take energy away from me, and I could be using that energy to actually do something different and respond differently. So acceptance is absolutely key if you want to free yourself up to do something different now. And binge eating is a cycle, and so often the way we respond to a binge is an opportunity to break this stage of the cycle. So part of the beating up that you do after you've binged, part of the things that you tell yourself about what you're going to do, is part of what sets you up for the next binge. So this is why the way you respond and just being willing to accept, even if it's hard to feel it, that's all I'm asking for you at this stage. And so tip number 2 is to reconnect with your body. When we binge eat, we disconnect from the body. We disconnect from how the body feels, the body signals, and a lot of people describe, they don't even feel that sense of fullness and discomfort until way after the binge or when all the food's gone. And when you have binged and maybe you feel disgust, maybe you feel really uncomfortable in your body, you are not going to want to reconnect with your body yet. But in order to break this cycle so that tomorrow and the day after don't turn into binge after binge after binge, we've got to get back in our bodies. And so there's a few ways we might do this. And one of them, okay, it's going to sound a bit pants because it's a bit like saying, drink a glass of water. And this is not that kind of video, but it is going to be, go for a walk. Walking is so good, not just physically, but mentally as well. So walking is really good for the digestion, but also walking is what we call bilateral movements. You're using both sides of the body equally and in a rhythmic way. What that means is it activates both the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, which is your rational thinking brain and your more emotional creative side have both been activated at the same time. And so it enables you to really bring your feelings and your thoughts into alignment. That's why we talk about going for a walk to clear our heads, because it really does work. But, you know, maybe it's 11 p.m, maybe it's time for bed, maybe you just don't want to go for a walk. Another thing that I suggest that I really like are the guided meditations, like the body scan ones. There's a really good one on YouTube that I like by someone called Lizzie Hill, and it's just some breathing and scanning through the body and just relaxing the body, and that can be a good way of connecting to the body as well. I'm going to pop the link to that in the notes below, so you can check that one out. I also plan to at some point record one myself and make that available on YouTube, so if you're watching this in the future, hopefully I've got something that you can listen to as well that might help. And tip number 3 is to consume uplifting materials. And by that, I mean podcasts, I mean books, I mean anything that helps to shift your thinking. And so for me, there's quite a lot of podcasts that I really like. I like Impact Theory. I like a lot of the stuff by Hay House. Also, you can't go wrong with a bit of Oprah. Anything that's really talking about what it means to be human, what it means to be on a self-development journey, to grow and develop, all those kinds of podcasts and audiobooks can be really, really great for that. And YouTube's another brilliant source of that. Maybe you're someone who's into a bit more of the Tony Robbins kind of thing. Anything that is going to help to pull you out of your current thinking, which is going to be a cycle of frustration, maybe despair, maybe anger, maybe hope. I don't know where your mind's gone at the moment. But consuming different materials, consuming different resources. I'm going to put some links below for you to check out some of the ones I like. I'm not sponsored. These are just ones that I really like and have helped me. And if you've got any that you listen to a lot and you find good, then pop them below because I'd love to check them out. And tip number 4 is gratitude. Now, gratitude is one of those words that it's been used a lot, so it's almost starting to lose its potency a little bit. But gratitude is such an important thing, because it was something actually that my very first therapist said to me that always stuck in my mind. And she said to me, it was a really benign thing, but it stayed with me. She said, we tend to only notice the things that get in our way. And I thought, that really struck a chord with me at the time, because I thought, gosh, that is so true. And this is what a gratitude practice does, is it's getting your brain to go off and find the things that are good, find the things that you appreciate that are important to you. So one of the ways that I often recommend people do this is notepad and pen beside the bed, and before you go to sleep at night, write down 3 things that you're thankful for, grateful for, or that you appreciate. And if possible, try and find things from the day. So things that have happened today that have gone well or that made you happy, whatever they might be. If you have had a really crappy day and you can't find anything, then go bigger picture. So you might be thankful for your home or your family or your health, the fact you can see. For me, one that I used to come up with a lot, I'm really thankful to live in a country that has free public healthcare. I think that's an amazing thing, because not every country has that. So that's something that comes up for me with gratitude quite a lot. And then in the mornings, pick up your notepad and pen again and just write down 3 people that you're grateful for. And these might be people that you know, or it might be people that you follow or that you've read, or anybody that has some kind of positive impact in your life. And that one might repeat, so the same names are probably going to keep coming up again and again. But I think that one's really good for feeling grateful and connected, for us to really notice the people in our life that might be the most frustrating, but also people that give to us a lot too. And I think a little bit like acceptance, a lot of people think that it's supposed to be a feeling, and we do want to feel grateful, because feeling grateful feels wonderful, but we're not always going to be able to do that. And chances are after a binge, it might be quite hard to feel grateful for these things. You might be like, yeah, I know I should be grateful and all this, and it might be another way to beat yourself up because you're not feeling grateful. So a little bit like with acceptance, just treat this as a cognitive exercise. If you do this every day before you go to sleep, some days you are going to feel so grateful and you'll go to sleep with a smile on your face. And some days you'll be like, oh, this is so pointless, why am I even doing this? But it's the consistency. It's that keep sending your brain off to find things that you're grateful for. You know, I had a little moment where I tend to notice little things now since I've been doing this. And when I was setting up my camera to do this, I've got one of these circular light things. When I picked up the plug and I went to put the plug in the wall, I was holding the plug in my hand and I thought, gosh, isn't electricity wonderful? And I just had a moment where I felt really thankful that we have electricity. So I think when something is in our lives all the time, we don't take the time to be grateful for it because we think it's just the way things are. And so when we take the time to start noticing things, start sending our brains to pay attention to these things, you know, we can start to really notice the things that are going well in our life and have a bit more space for them. Because when you're struggling with something like binge eating, it's taking up so much of your mental energy, so much of your emotional energy, that often there just isn't the space. Everything else is getting crowded out. So I think the gratitude practice just allows space for a bit of good. Because it can be like, well, life will never be good until I sort out binge eating. That's not true. You could struggle with binge eating and life can still be pretty great sometimes. And it's about finding that balance. There's a bit of grey thinking going on here when it comes to gratitude and seeing the good and the bad. And the last tip, and this one is really important because this will be the one that interrupts the cycle going forwards. And this one is to set an intention. Now you will probably be doing this already when you binge or after you binge, but it's probably not working for you. You're probably setting intentions that keep setting you up to binge again. For example, a lot of people will binge and then their intention will be, right, I've eaten too much today, tomorrow I can only eat X amount of food. Or they might set an intention that says, right, no, I binged today, so I'm never going to binge again. I bet you've done that one before. And they don't seem to work. And setting these kinds of intentions keep tripping you up over and over again. So there are two things to consider when setting intentions, because if you get this bit right, actually it can really support you, because intention setting can be a really powerful way of moving in the direction that you want to move in. So, first of all, the intention needs to be focused on self-care and your higher good. So when you are telling yourself, tomorrow you're going to restrict, that is not an act of self-care and that is not an act for your higher good. And also, the second thing that intention needs to be is realistic. So when you're telling yourself, I'm never going to binge again, that hasn't been your experience. Your experience has been the fact that you're watching this video again, you're back here again, means that when you intend to never binge again, that doesn't work because it's not realistic. Now, I'm not saying that you will binge again. I think always hold in mind that this might be your last binge. But if you are telling yourself you are not going to binge again, and you believe that simply the act of telling yourself you won't do it again will be enough, then you're probably going to set yourself up to fall over again, to be back in this cycle going round and round. So how do we think about setting intentions? So we want to find something. Or let's go back to what an intention is. If we think of what an intention is, it's like, what do I need to focus on now? I've come back to this place again. I don't like it here. I don't want to be binging. So what do I need to focus on? If you're someone who struggles with binging, you know how to go unconscious with food. So personally, I think one of the best intentions you can set is simply, okay, from now on, I'm going to be really conscious with my food. And the great thing about an intention is you can keep resetting it. So if you find yourself going unconscious with food, but as soon as you realise, you can set your intention again. Okay, my intention is to be super conscious with food, to just be present every time I eat. And that's one of the best ways out of the binge eating cycle, because compulsive eating involves us to obliterate any sense of being present. We have to escape, we have to numb out. And so if our intention is to be present, it's much harder to do that. And if you can, with an intention, let's say it's midnight, and you're saying, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be really present with my food, ideally start now. Say, from this very moment, my intention, to the best of my ability, is to be present with my food. Even if it's midnight and you're going to go to bed so you're not going to eat anything, you've started straight away. And another thing I do, because in the morning, you're going to need to remember what you said to yourself now. Something I used to do all the time. If I wanted to set an intention, I want to remember something in the morning, I would grab something off my nightstand. So it might be like, I don't know, a lip balm or something like that. I can pick up this hairband, for example, and I would just throw it across the room so it would land in the middle of my floor. And then what happens is in the morning when I wake up, I see the object in the middle of the floor and I'm like, what's that doing there? And I remember exactly why I put that there. Oh yeah, I put it there because I said to myself last night that my intention is to be present with food. And you might want a more practical intention. You might want an intention to plan a meal of something that you know you always enjoy and always feels nourishing physically and emotionally. That might be helpful because it might reduce your food decisions the next day. Whatever they are, whatever your intentions are, they need to be for your higher good and they need to be realistic. So, the 5 tips are, number 1 is to accept. I know it's a tough one. That can just be an intention in itself, a willingness to say, okay, I'm willing to accept this, even if I've got a lot of emotions that are telling me otherwise. Next, reconnect with your body. Third one is to find resources that are uplifting. 4th one is gratitude, and the 5th one is to set an intention. So hopefully these were helpful for you and you can put them into use, and go well. I'll see you on the next video. Namaste.